Let's cross straight to Mexico City and speak to journalist Katie Silver. Welcome, Katie. Now, Mencho's killing has triggered violent retaliation across the country. The president now says the situation is under control. In real terms, though, what does that mean? Back to normal?
I guess somewhat. We do feel here in the capital city things inching back to life. This morning there was still a lot of trepidation. The streets are very, very quiet. They are still somewhat quiet, and there has certainly been a lot of helicopters overhead, but it does seem for the most part the country getting back to life as normal. Some Mexican people have been speaking say that they're kind of accustomed to these sorts of things, although of course it does make them question whether or not they're going to want to be traveling to other parts of the country. The state of Jalisco, that remains under code red, which has seen schools closed there, for example, most people sheltering in place. That does seem to be lifting. We understand, for example, public transport coming back online. The state of Michoacan also has had schools closed. All of that does seem to be alleviating, but we know as well that there's been a huge deployment of the National Guard to try and mitigate some of these issues. And so that is perhaps as well what is behind, I guess, some of this slow returning to normal that we're seeing here in the city.
At this point, what is known about how the death of Mencho came about?
It's really quite a remarkable story. So what has emerged today is that it was actually a tip-off from one of Mencho's lover's friends. So she went to visit him in the compound, we understand, I think Friday evening, and that was when authorities were tipped off. There was, of course, a $15 million US bounty on his head from the US State Department. So we understand that tip-off occurred. She was then followed, and they then monitored her. She then left the compound. And then working with this in conjunction with this US Special Task Force, they came up with a plan for the raid. That then occurred Sunday morning, and we saw the Mexican army raiding this site in Tapalpa, which is a city about 2 hours southwest driving from the capital city of Jalisco, Guadalajara. And what ensued was gunfire. 8 members of the cartel, we understood, were killed in that initial gunfire. Mencho and 2 of his bodyguards then retreated into a part of the complex, a wooden part of the complex, whereas there's a cabin. More gunfire ensued. He was injured along with 2 of his bodyguards, and then they were airlifted, due to be brought here to Mexico City for treatment, but they died en route. That's according to the Mexican authorities.
Tell us more about Mencho and the role he played in the Mexican underworld.
Yeah, so he was an omnipresent figure when it comes to the cartels. He initially actually went to the US in his 20s as an undocumented immigrant, and there he got into the heroin trade. He ended up spending 3 years in jail in the US, returning to Mexico deported, and then from there, over the next 3 or so decades, he worked his way up in the cartels. He was in the Milenio cartel as the Jalisco New Generation Cartel was previously known, and then when it was formed in 2009, he's been the head of it ever since. A omnipresent figure in the, as you said, in the Mexican underworld. This cartel, for its part, by many accounts, Mexico's most dangerous, most powerful, certainly growing in importance. Exports in the order of billions of dollars of fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamine into the US. Such to the point that President Trump about a year ago declared it a terrorist organization. So very, very significant. And it has been associated, this cartel as well, with very sophisticated weaponry, grenades, rocket launchers. They even found some of these as part of the raid yesterday. So a very, very omnipresent figure here when it comes to the cartels.
That was journalist Katie Silver in Mexico City. Thanks so much, Katie.